Yeah, so I figured I'd come on out here to Hollywood and go to a bunch of Buffy and Angel locations, check out Sunnydale, at least what's left of it. Of course, it's actually all destroyed in a crater, right? But let's go look at some Sunnydale locations. Hey kids, we're here at the intersection of Stewart and Olympic in Santa Monica. And you can see this really dilapidated warehouse behind me that looks like it's been absolutely gutted. It's missing panels, it's falling apart. It's got the Richler Partners on it. This is actually the warehouse they used to shoot Buffy the Vampire in interiors. And they also built the backlot set for Sunnydale Main Street, which had things like the Magic Box and the espresso pump and stuff like that in it. They also had Spike's Crypt right over here where where that blue car is going right now. It was just on the other side of the fence. And then over here, as the blue car is continuing, over here they had sort of like their exterior that they would use for graveyards or parks or somebody's front yard, anything like that. They just put turf over the parking lot. In some places they actually dug into the parking lot, so they had pits, and they would use those as graves that vampires could emerge from. So I'm kind of glad I got here when I did, because it looks like this is not long for this world. It was a cheap place, that's why they used it, because no studio would take them in, so they kind of had to make their own thing, and renting a warehouse is certainly cheaper. Yeah, so here's the thing that's going to be replacing the warehouse where they shot Buffy. The hearing date was September 7th. That's about 3 months ago now. I guess it was approved. Yeah, that's what it's going to look like. It looks nice. Certainly nicer than the building that's here. Yeah, so we're looking through the fence now at what was once the main street for Sunnydale. Over here on the end, you have the Sun Cinema. And then as you follow down this sort of street, which is really a parking lot, you would get to things like the espresso pump and the Magic Box. And then all the way down at the end of the building, we'll try to get some shots of that from over there a little bit closer, is where the actual entrance to the Bronze was. So it was really integrated into the building very well. But all the other things like the Sunnydale Cinema, the Sun Cinema, or the Magic Box, they didn't have their actual interiors in them. They were just fronts. The only exception to that was the espresso pump, which was sort of an open air kind of thing. They would actually shoot inside of that because it wasn't really an inside. So yeah, all that stuff was torn down back in 2003, and I can't see the least little trace of it now, but it's been 7 years, so. So right about here was where they had the Cordelia fake-out funeral, and Buffy and Willow came walking down right along here talking. So it's kind of fun to actually be standing here where they shot it. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so here's another scene in Rosedale. Giles pulls up in his car, gets out, heads over here to this mausoleum. When he gets to about here, the camera pulls back, and he's got a couple of vampires on either side of him. So he pulls out his cross, fends them off a little bit, and then he runs on inside. The inside's actually really tiny, so they filmed like 1 or 2 shots of people running around in there, and then they cut to some other location somewhere else. Who knows? All right, so let's move on to another one. All right, so here's a section where they shot a sequence from the beginning of season 2, if I remember correctly, where Willow and Xander are walking along this stretch. Now it looks different because they actually brought in a prop wall that ran all the way from the end down to here, but you'll certainly recognize this outbuilding behind me. And whenever the camera spun around to show Xander, you'd see this wall over here on the side and all of these graves that are the low ones. And then Willow and Xander proceeded along to a tree up here, and Willow hopped up on the prop wall, and they had their little thing with the ice cream. So I'll come over here, and they had a branch attached to this tree so that Buffy could kick the vampire onto it and die. So Willow was sitting up here. There were even prop street lights to make it look like it was an actual street, but we're actually about 30 yards from the actual street. And then Buffy has a little fight with the vampire, kicks the vampire. He flies up against the fake branch on this tree and turns to dust. So that's all that we're going to look at here in Angeles Rosedale. They shot about a dozen scenes in here, so it gets kind of tedious to go and get each and every one of them. But all right, let's move on to the next location. Hey, so I'm standing in front of the Enos house, which was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright back in the 20s or 30s or whatever. And It is.
good.
It served as the exterior of Angel's mansion during Buffy the Vampire Slayer for seasons 2 and 3. Angel lived in it all that time, and for a time Drusilla and Spike lived in it too. No one actually lives here. It's owned by a society now that's trying to restore it. Although when you kind of take it in as a overall look, it looks to be okay, but actually if you zoom in on like certain parts of it, it's actually in pretty bad shape. But they didn't actually use the interior of this any, but they used the overall design. So like the shadowed courtyard where Buffy and Angel would frequently hang out, that was kind of based on a area of this that's like where the swimming pool is and stuff. We can't actually get inside, but we're just on a public street filming up. And so if you film on up and show that main window there, that's the establishing shot they would always use. Of course, it would be nighttime since Angel, of course, wouldn't be running around during the day. I don't know if they ever showed this shot during the day. They may have, but I don't recall it offhand. But yeah, so then of course after season 3, Angel moved on to Los Angeles. So this was supposed to be in Sunnydale, but it's actually... Alright, so this was the courtyard at the Hyperion Hotel for Angel. It's actually the Los Altos Apartments and Hotel on Santa Monica Boulevard. So there it is. They later made a set for it, but they shot a few scenes here originally. And then of course they would always use the building as establishing shot. So let's go to the next place. Well, now I'm in front of Sony Pictures building, which you might know better as the Wolfram and Hart headquarters from Angel. Distinctive steps. It's actually the Sony Pictures Plaza, which is right across the street from Sony Studios, where, unless I'm mistaken, is where they actually shot the interiors for Angel. So, there it is, Wolfram and Hart. Alright, so we're right now in the on recreational area where they shot the famous sequence where Willow and Tara were in this park, and they walked across this bridge here, and they were talking about how much Tara loves Willow and all that stuff. And they must have brought some cropped bushes in because these bushes are pretty puny. But then Willow walks down here and starts dancing with 2 other chicks, and yeah, pretty cool. So right now we're standing in front of a chiropractic building that's at 18411 Crenshaw Drive in Torrance, and this was used for season 3 and I think some of season 4 as the mayor's office for Buffy. And they did a few exterior shots here, but mostly it was just used for establishing shots, and then it would cut back to the sets back at the place on Stewart and Olympic. So pretty interesting. Let's head along. Alright, so here we are in front of Sunnydale High itself, which is actually Torrance High School in Torrance, California. And as you can see, it's raining and cold in Southern California. What's up with that? They actually get a paper here at the school. Interesting. Now right over here is the railing that Xander first crashes into in the very first episode when he is skateboarding and sees Buffy and is so wowed by her Buffiness that he crashes right in. You know, it's surprisingly small. It seems much bigger on television. And then of course this was also used in 90210 and several films like She's All That and Bring It On and things like that. So whenever they would film, they would just throw up a fake placard over the Torrance High and it would say Sunnydale High. Now I'm pretty sure in at least the earlier episodes they would actually use some of the interiors in here because people would walk through these, the characters would actually walk through these doors and go into the halls. But certainly by season 2 they had constructed all the interiors they needed for Buffy back at the Olympic and Stewart warehouse where they did all their interior shots. But any sort of exterior stuff would be here. So here's the front of it, and now we're going to try and see if we can sneak into that courtyard that's just on the other side of here. Alright, so let's go.